Hello viewers, I will discuss about metamorphic zones and isograds. First I will discuss about the outline. Let us recapitulate. We have discussed metamorphic phases in the previous video. Let's now study metamorphic zones and isograds in this video. Introduction is George Barrow 1912 and C.E. Tilley 1925, based on mapping of regional metamorphic rocks of Scotland, have noticed regular variations in rock and mineral assemblage with respect to progressive increase in metamorphism, thus proposed subdivisions in an area into metamorphic zones. Each zone is marked by influx of new mineral species. Here is the diagram. A typical Barrovian type metamorphic field gradient and a series of metamorphic PTT paths for rocks found along that gradient in the field. We have shown here temperature on the abscissa and pressure on the ordinate on my left hand side, and the metamorphic field gradient is also shown with yellow color, and all the zones have been shown with the help of a dash contour line, which is also known as PTT path. Grade of metamorphism. What is the grade of metamorphism? Metamorphic grade refers to temperature and or pressure under which a rock was metamorphosed. The metamorphic grades have been used to indicate relative intensity of metamorphism as related to either increasing temperature or increasing pressure conditions of metamorphism, or often both. Metamorphic grade based on relative intensity of metamorphism are classified as low grade metamorphism. At temperatures between 200 degrees centigrade to 320 degrees centigrade and relatively low pressure, the examples are clay, mica minerals and chlorite. The rocks are slate and phyllite. High grade metamorphism at temperature greater than 320 degrees centigrade and relatively at high pressure. The examples include muscovite is a hydrous mineral that eventually disappears at the highest grade of metamorphism. Biotite is a hydrous mineral that is stable to very high grades of metamorphism. Pyroxene and garnet are non-hydrous minerals. The rocks formed are schist and gneiss, result from high grade metamorphism. The metamorphic grade, depending on whether metamorphism is accompanied by increasing or decreasing temperature. The prograde metamorphism, or also known as progressive metamorphism, gives rise to the minerals typical of a higher grade that is formed at higher temperature than the former phase assemblage. The retrograde metamorphism or regressive metamorphism gives rise to the minerals typical of a lower grade, that is lower temperature than former phase assemblage. The different grades of metamorphism yield different metamorphic mineral assemblages. As the grade increases, recrystallization and neocrystallization tend to produce coarser grains and new mineral assemblages that are stable at higher temperatures and pressures. Again, I am showing a diagram here. The grade of metamorphism increases with depth. Temperature and pressure increase as we move deeper in the earth. See here on left hand side, I have shown that pressure and different temperatures shown on at the top of this diagram, that is increasing from left to right from 0 to 1000 degree temperature. So first is diagenesis, then comes low grade metamorphism, then intermediate grade metamorphism, and high grade metamorphism is shown with dark grey color, and on my right hand side the partial melt of granite rocks that exist on my right hand side, which is at temperatures greater than 700 degree temperature and pressure higher than say for example 200, 300 degree or much more than 500 degree temperatures. Metamorphic zones and index minerals. Each zone is marked by the first appearance of index minerals, and theoretically it is dependent on temperature of formation and burial depth. Index minerals with increase in metamorphic grade is from chlorite to biotite to almandine garnet to sterolite to kyanite and finally sillimanite. Mineral zone is defined by systematic distribution of individual mineral or minerals occurring in distinct zones. A line on the map joining points of first appearance of index mineral or minerals gives low grade limit, after which the zone is named. A similar line indicates high grade limit of a particular zone, which is defined by the appearance of another higher grade index mineral. Tilly defined two adjacent mineral zones which are separated by a line called mineral zone boundary or an isograd. Example, biotite zone. It occurs between biotite and almandine garnet zone boundaries. The index mineral may or may not persist in higher grades, but at times it is restricted to single mineral zone. The isograd. Tilly defined two different mineral zones which are separated by a line called mineral zone boundary or an isograd. The example is biotite zone. It occurs between biotite and almandine garnet zone boundaries. Index mineral may or may not persist in higher grades, but at times it is restricted to single mineral zone. Here again is the diagram. I am showing a typical Barrovian type metamorphic field gradient and a series of metamorphic PTT paths for rocks found along that gradient in the field. The temperature is shown in the abscissa and pressure shown on the ordinate. On my left hand side, the dashed line indicates the contour line indicates PTT paths and a continuous line shows metamorphic field gradient in this diagram. First, Barrovian zones. Such zonal sequences called Barrovian zones found in many other areas and are characteristic of medium pressure metaphylites. Zonal sequence recognized by Barrow and marked by rocks and typical mineral assemblage in each zone. The chlorite zone, rocks are pellite, slates or phyllites. The mineral assemblage or the minerals are chlorite, muscovite, quartz and albite. Next is biotite zone, rocks mostly phyllites and schist. Minerals are biotite, chlorite, muscovite, quartz and albite. The next one is garnet zone. The rocks are schist with visible red almandine garnet. The minerals are biotite, chlorite, muscovite, quartz, albite or oligoclase. The another zone is sterolite zone. Rock is basically schist containing minerals are sterolite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, garnet and plagioclase. Chlorite may persist. Kyanite zone. Rocks mainly schist. They contain minerals, kyanite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, plagioclase. Usually garnet and sterolite may be there. The next one is sillimanite zone. Rocks, mainly schist and gneisses, they contain minerals like sillimanite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, plagioclase, garnet, and perhaps sterolite. Some kyanite may also be present. See this diagram, which shows mineral zones show increasing metamorphic grades. The biotite zone is shown on my left hand side with dash or dotted lines. It is biotite zone, then chloride zone, biotite zone, increasing metamorphic grade is shown towards my right hand side, and the kyanite isograd is on right hand side, that is at high temperature side, and sterolite isograd and garnet isograd. They all isograds are delineated from the area scaling around 100 kilometer area. The distribution of metamorphic minerals in pilitic rocks from Barrovian zones of the Scottish Highland are as follows. Mineral zoning, chlorite that exists, chloride zone and biotite zone. Muscovite that exists in almost all the zones, include right from chloride zone to sillimanite zone. Then biotite, except chloride zone, it exists in all other zones except biotite zone. Almandine zone starts from almandine to sterolite, kyanite and sillimanite zone. Sterolite zone, boundary of biotite zone and sterolite zone, kyanite zone. And sillimanite zone, that increasing metamorphic grade and up to sillimanite zone it occurs. Sodic plagioclase exists everywhere, quartz exists everywhere. So this is, you may find one very peculiar thing here, that chlorite, it appears at chloride zone, but it does not exist in other zones like biotite zone. Similarly, the biotite does not exist in other zones like sterolite zone, like that. So appearance and disappearance of mineral species is very important in order to mark the isograds. Metamorphic grades. I am showing the metamorphic grades here. The metamorphic phases, green schist phases, and transitional series, amphibolite phases, and granulite phases. The mineral assemblage is albite, plagioclase, epidote, anorthite, actinolite, hornblende, agite, orthopyroxene, chlorite, garnet, biotite, quartz, fangite, and cummingtonite. The different distribution of all these metamorphic phases, you have green schist phases, transitional series, amphibolite phases, and granulite phases. You have zones associated, metaphylites, chloride zones, biotite zone, garnet zone, sterolite zone, sillimanite zone, K-feldspar zone, and coronite garnet zone. Let us summarize. The metamorphic grade refers to temperature pressure conditions under which any rock was metamorphosed. Low grade metamorphism, the temperature range is around 200 degrees centigrade to 320 degrees centigrade temperature, and at low pressure. High grade metamorphism, the temperature range is greater than 320 degrees centigrade and pressure is high pressure. The mineral zones defined on the basis of individual minerals occurring in regional zones, the order of index minerals with increased metamorphic grade is as follows. First, chlorite, biotite, almandine, garnet, sterolite, kyanite, sillimanite. The distribution of metamorphic minerals in peletic rocks from Barrovian zones of Scottish Highland is shown over here. The mineral zoning, let us start with chlorite, muscovite, biotite, almandine, sterolite, kyanite, sillimanite, sodic, plagioclase and quartz. The first zone is chlorite zone. It contains basically chlorite and muscovite. Muscovite is present throughout all the zones. It doesn't contain biotite, it doesn't contain almandine, doesn't contain sterolite. Kyanite is also absent. Sillimanite is also not there. Sodic plagioclase is there, and quartz. The next zone is biotite zone, where you have chlorite, muscovite, biotite, almandine, sterolite, kyanite, sillimanite, sodic plagioclase and quartz. They are also present here. The next one is almandine zone. Almandine zone is marked by the presence of almandine and sterolite, kyanite, sillimanite, sodic plagioclase and quartz. The sterolite zone is, in the sterolite zone there is no chlorite as such. Muscovite is there. You may have biotite, you may have almandine, you may have sterolite. Similarly, in kyanite zone also, you don't have chlorite, you don't have, you have minerals like muscovite, biotite, almandine, sterolite and kyanite. In sillimanite zone, there is no chlorite, but you have muscovite, you have biotite, almandine. There is no sterolite in sillimanite zone, and there is no kyanite in sillimanite zone, but sillimanite is there. Apart from this, we have sodic plagioclase and quartz. We have discussed chlorite zone. The abundance of minerals and rocks in the chlorite zone is as follows. The pelites, slates and phyllites are commonly found rocks. Minerals are basically chlorite, muscovite, quartz and albite. In biotite zone, the rock is basically phyllites and schist. The minerals present are biotite, chlorite, muscovite, quartz and albite. In case of garnet zone, the rocks present are schist with visible red almandine garnet. The minerals are biotite, chlorite, muscovite, quartz, and albite or oligoclase. In a sterolite zone, mostly schist, they contain minerals sterolite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, garnet and plagioclase. Chlorite may persist. In case of kyanite zone, the rock is mainly schist. It contains kyanite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, plagioclase. Usually garnet and sterolite may be there. In sillimanite zone, the rock is mainly present here are schist and gneisses. They contain minerals sillimanite, biotite, muscovite, quartz, plagioclase, garnet and perhaps sterolite. Some kyanite may also be present. Thank you, viewers.